A couple of top 10 teams last week have dropped completely out of our top 25 this week. And if you missed the video last week, I changed up how I'm doing my rankings going forward. So basically, we are putting the teams into tiers based off of competitive games against each other. And you've got a ton of teams in that second tier, and now only 6 teams in the top tier. So with those teams in tier number 2, the way we are separating those teams, it's based off of resume. So that's where the resume comes into play. You could have a team in tier 2 with a better resume than a team in tier 1, but all of the teams in tier 1 are ranked in that top tier. So that's going to be your top 6. And yes, Penn State and Texas have fallen completely out of my top 25. Those now look like tier 2 teams. They look like they're in that group with all these other teams, and they don't have a resume. They haven't beaten anyone. So those teams are not even ranked. And I told you guys last week, because there were a lot of complaints about where I had them ranked. I said, look, if they don't look really good next week, they're going to drop out of tier 1, and that's exactly what happened. So again, it was early, and we didn't really have much to go off of, but now we know that Texas and Penn State are not elite teams. And I think for the most part, there's BYU hasn't played anyone great. There are a few teams that still haven't played a really good team yet, but for the most part, I think we pretty much know where every team stands. So let's start at the bottom, 21 through 25. I've got Nebraska at number 25. They have, again, we're just basing this off of resume, and I'm not viewing, so if you beat a team that is ranked number 15, and then another team beats a team that's not even ranked, if those are both tier 2 teams, those wins are counted the same. You don't get, there's such a small amount of separation between these teams. A number beside your name does not mean it's a better win than maybe this other team. It's really about the tier. So all those teams grouped together, and you look at Nebraska, they've got a win over Cincinnati, which is now looking like a very good win. That's one that we didn't really know about, but Cincinnati went out and won again this week. They also beat Michigan State. Now, a great win, but it's a Power 4 team. And those 2 wins right there, they have, you look at teams below them that just don't have, Cincinnati has a little bit better resume, but the head-to-head, I think with those 2, it's not that much of a better resume. So that's why I have Nebraska. But I think Cincinnati definitely has a case. They've beaten 2 tier 2 teams with the win this past weekend, and then also beating earlier in the year, beating Kansas. So it's very close. The margins are very close with these teams, and that's again the final team to get in. Nebraska ahead of them, TCU, Utah at 23, BYU at 22, Virginia at number 21. And again, this is all based off of resume. Virginia's got a couple of really solid wins. Their loss hurts them a little bit because they lost to NC State, who is kind of below tier 2. They're in between tier 2 and 3 for me, just because of the loss to Virginia Tech. Although Virginia Tech does look like they're playing, that's a better team now, so maybe that's not fair to NC State. And that would actually give Virginia a resume that would put them, more in the 15-ish range. So again, it's razor thin margins. We're looking at these teams, and one little thing can move a team up or down several spots. Because look, there's so much parity this year. These teams are all basically the same. That's why we have to go by resume when we get to this point. All right, so let's go to the next teams. We've got Iowa State at number 20, Vanderbilt 19, Tennessee 18, Georgia 17, and Michigan at number 16. All of these teams have pretty similar resumes. There's not a huge gap with these teams. Iowa State has more quality wins, but maybe not as many really good wins when you look at them. Georgia's got a couple of solid wins. Tennessee with a couple of solid wins. Vanderbilt, a couple of pretty good wins. So, it's again very, very close when you compare these resumes. And head-to-head has to matter. That's why Georgia's ahead of Tennessee. So that's why I have the teams there. And Michigan's loss coming to Oklahoma, a little bit of a better loss because we have Oklahoma still in that range in between tier 1 and 2. So that's why Michigan is up there at number 16. Now we go to 11 through 15. Arizona State number 15, Alabama 14, LSU 13, Illinois 12, and Missouri at number 11. So yeah, this is, it's pretty close with these teams. Missouri is undefeated, so I think them being in that spot, that's pretty fair. You look at, now that I look at this again, this is where we talk about the tiers. So LSU beat Florida, and then they beat Clemson. Those are tier 2 teams. Alabama beat Georgia and Vanderbilt. Now we think Georgia and Vanderbilt are probably better than those teams. So you can make an argument that Alabama should be ahead of LSU, but then you also look at LSU losing to Ole Miss versus Alabama losing to Florida State, who is now a 2-loss team. So it's, like I mentioned before, it's very, very close when we start looking at these numbers and trying to rank these teams. I believe Alabama is probably a top 10 team right now, the way they're playing, but this is more of a numbers type ranking, not really going by who I think is better. This is more, again, based off of resumes, and I think that's where the resumes stack these teams up. Illinois is at 5-1. They've got a decent resume, and their loss, it came to a good team, but the way they got blown out in that game, it kind of makes it tough. But again, their resume just a little bit better. Their wins just a little bit better than LSU, Alabama, and Arkansas, and Arizona State. When you total them all together, again, I think Alabama probably has the best, maybe the best 2 wins out of these teams. But you have to look at the full resumes and totaling everything up. So there's 11 through 15. Let's move on to the top 10 now. We got Georgia Tech and Ole Miss at 9 and 10. Now these are the teams at the top of tier number 2. So these two teams have the best resumes in terms of total quality wins, Ole Miss and Georgia Tech. So that's the line. The red lines there kind of indicate the separation between tier 2 and tier 1. Indiana, Oklahoma are still teams that I'm not sure which tier they are in, because we have seen Indiana look really good against Illinois, but then a close win against Iowa, who's a tier 2 team. And so I'm not sure about Indiana. Same thing for Oklahoma. Close game against tier 2 Auburn, but they won pretty convincingly against Michigan. That's why I'm just really not sure about those two teams. I've got them at 7 and 8. Again, they're in between tier 1 and 2, and I've still got Notre Dame as a tier 1 team. If anything, look at this weekend. Miami and Texas A&M, very impressive. Notre Dame played those teams very close. I still believe Notre Dame is on the same level as those two teams, and if those are tier 1 teams, then I think Notre Dame is a tier 1 team, and I think they deserve to be ranked with those teams. Now, obviously, they're at the bottom of those 6 teams because they got 2 losses, and they don't have, they have the worst resume of those teams. But yeah, I think, and I know people have a hard time with seeing Notre Dame with 2 losses right there, but I think it's where they should be ranked based on. I said this before. I'm not going to penalize them for playing a really tough schedule to start off the season. And so yeah, I've got Notre Dame at 6. Then a top 5. Here it is. So some changes here. We've got Miami at number 1, Texas A&M at number 2, Ohio State at 3. Then we've got Oregon at number 4 and Texas Tech at number 5. So the reasoning here, again, it's all based off of resume, but what has changed is Oregon's resume does not look as good now that we see Penn State lose to UCLA. Ohio State's resume does not look as good now that we see Texas clearly not an elite team, but these teams are still in tier 1 because of how dominant they have been against lesser competition. Again, you could say, well, Penn State, Texas were close games. They should be in the same tier as them. I get that, and I think you could make an argument for that, but they've been so dominant against those other teams. When those were big games, like the Texas-Ohio State, and that was first game of the season, they were very conservative. Oregon was playing on the road, even though they pretty much dominated that game. I know it was close, it was an overtime game. I think Ohio State and Oregon still are tier 1 teams. That could change as we move forward, but right now that's where I feel like they should be. Texas Tech has been very good against now Houston and also Utah. I think Texas Tech is a tier 1 team. I mean, that's what, again, we don't know for sure because it's a pretty small sample size, but I believe they're on the level of these other teams. But Miami and Texas A&M, they have the best resumes. I think Miami's resume for sure is the best. When you look at wins over Florida, you look at a win over Notre Dame, you look at a win now over Florida State. Those are 3 really good wins. Texas A&M also has a good resume. A win over Notre Dame, a win over Auburn, a win now over Mississippi State. Those 2 teams, to me, clearly have the best 2 resumes. So I think Miami and Texas A&M have to be number 1 and number 2 if we're going by resume. Now, again, this could change. Ohio State and Oregon, I think, have been a little bit more dominant against teams that are not elite, but still pretty good teams. Like Minnesota is not a bad team. Ohio State went out and destroyed them. And Oregon has done that. Like, look at the Northwestern game, Oklahoma State. I know those are not great teams, but still, we're not seeing the tier 2 teams go out and win those games the way Ohio State, Oregon have been winning them. And that's why I still have them in tier number 1. I understand if you want to debate that. I think there is an argument there, but that's the way I see it right now. So Miami at 1, then Texas A&M, Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas Tech. That rounds out my top 25. Give me your thoughts and your top 25 down in the comments below.